Hello Commanders, this is Admiral doing a live stream, and we're going to go ahead and get started. We're just going to discuss some frequently asked questions, give everyone an opportunity to get some questions answered. We've got Snuggums with us here. He may be able to provide additional feedback and clarifications. You have to excuse me, I do have a little bit of a raw voice, so let's just dive right in. Alright, so
You running Let's Ask question?
nope, I've got a list up. I'm gonna pull it up here in a second. Actually, now that I think about it, I didn't it's on my desktop. Okay, let's see. How can I hide my screen from you fine gentlemen? Here we go. There we go. Okay. I got my frequently asked questions ready for you guys. I am totally prepared for this live stream. I am not an amateur. Alright, so number one, resources. What resources should I focus on for early game, mid game, and late game if I am focusing on X policy? How does labor work and each resource? So there are three resources, well, four if you can include labor, but three building resources. You've got gas, metal, and crystal. Crystal will basically crystal's used for defensive ships as a primary resource. They're also used for industrial buildings as a primary resource. And what I mean by that is you can see that for all industrial buildings, crystal is used the most. Gas is domain, and scouts and Machiavelli. So let's take that back a step. Imperial players will mostly want crystal. Gas is for Machiavellian players. I mean, you're all going to need it, but if you're going to build a lot of scouts, you're going to want a lot of gas. At the same time, you're going to need domain buildings. You're going to need a lot of gas. Okay. And then for military buildings, you're going to need a lot of metal, and those are for the militaristic players as well, who want to build a lot of military ships. So let's go ahead and go to the shipyard. You can see my cues. Do not sabotage me, I swear to God.
I would just like to add a little bit to that.
Sure.
Like a good rule of thumb is that if you are militaristic, you have a primary resource, which is metal. Good rule of thumb is that you're going to need twice as much metal as the other two combined. So that's the rule of thumb. So if you're looking about how to harvest as much metal as you can, then that's the rule. Twice as much of metal, or whatever your primary resource is, than the other two combined.
Right. So in this case, if you've got 50 metal, you know, that should match your combined gas and crystal production, ideally. And then, you know, that does get a little challenging when your first few stations might be industrial, and you'll need a lot of crystal to build those buildings out. So you can see here militaristic ships like the destroyer, same thing. Carriers, same thing. And then for defensive ships, it's quite the opposite. You need a lot of crystal. Kind of reinforces our discussion here. Industrial players, it's even across the board, and scout is heavy on gas. It's actually a little more crystal than I would expect. I think it's interesting that gunships, although everyone can build them, is primarily a metal consuming resource. That's interesting to see. But yeah, so that's what the three building resources are for, and you can see essentially all four different kinds of resource types on the Celestial. If you haven't figured it out yet, you can hit spacebar. And you can see, you know, some areas are great for labor, some are great for crystal, some are
Admiral, you're going to have to take the volume down on the music in the game, please.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Sorry.
Alright, so labor. So labor is not a resource that you can produce and spend like building material. you as you build up buildings, labor buildings, or as you harvest resource nodes, that gives you a static boost in total labor available to you. Okay, you use it by fleeting up ships. What I mean by that is, so we got a ship, we got some ships here. It uses, well, right now I'm negative labor, so it's a really piss poor example. But for every one labor, it uses, every one ship, it uses one labor. Okay, so it doesn't produce more labor, you just get that much more. So let's say I'm mining this mining field at 100% efficiency, I would get a static 120 labor. That means I can fleet 120 ships. Now there are a few different ways that you can get labor penalty, such as if you have more fleets operating out of the station than your maximum, like here. For every additional fleet over your maximum, all of your fleets get hit by a, I believe it's 10% labor penalty per fleet. And then what else? Well, you can go negative labor if you've got too many buildings and not enough labor production, and that can really hurt your station labor. If your fleets are operating out of a station with negative labor, your fleets are essentially ineffective. They're piss poor defenders, and they will they'll fly out very slowly. We're talking like 1 hex per hour. So that's what's causing some of you, to answer another question, to experience extremely slow flight times. You know, be careful. Make sure you are not flirting with the edge of danger on negative labor. One cool tip, and now you guys get to see everything of mine. Let's go ahead and go to the labor management, and you can see I'm negative labor. You can use the labor management tool to make yourself positive. You can keep it there and whatnot. Everyone take a screenshot. Hack Admiral. Alright, I swear to God, if you guys raid me, I will mess you up. Yeah, so I'm live streaming from the actual alpha, which puts me at a very significant disadvantage, but I have to answer your questions. So, missions. What are the benefits of running these? Do they reward experience? Do they respawn, and how often? So, missions, there are a few different kinds. You can run alien missions and defense missions. Both require defense ships. You can run recon or scout missions. Those require scouts or recons. You ideally want to use scouts, though. Recons are not very they can run missions, but they're not very effective compared to scouts. Recons take a long time to build. You only get 2 scan strength with them. They're best for sabotage, and we'll talk more about that in another video. Do they reward experience? I actually don't know that one. Snookums, do you?
Yes, they do. They do reward experience.
That's good. Great. So you want to complete a lot of missions, because that's the only way you're going to level up your fleets. What is experience good for with your fleets? Well, that helps you level up your fleets, which allows your fleets to actually hold more ships. Why is that important? Well, it allows you to put more ships in one fleet, which allows you to benefit from the cards applied to that fleet. So if, you know, all of your fleets are 700 maximum, well, that's a lot of legendaries and epic cards you're going to need to craft. But if one fleet can hold 1,500 ships, you know, that's essentially one less fleet that you have to card for. There is another take, though. It's a lot harder to manage your labor around that. Manage your labor. You know, having 1,500 labor around, you know, for just one fleet from one station. So just keep that in mind. There is a give and take, but the benefits are overall better, especially as your fleets grow insanely large. So that's the experience portion. Do they respawn? Yes, they do kind of respawn. So when you finish a mission, there's a chance that a new mission will spawn in a random direction from that spot. And usually over time, what that means is, as you complete these missions, just through the mechanic of randomness, your missions are going to start moving away from your station. The only way to really get those back is if other players out there are completing those missions and randomly sending them back your direction. If you find that you are lacking missions, you're going to really have to just take those long flight times or build another station farther away and make that your new mission hub. You know, that's what it is right now. So,
Admiral,
yeah.
what is your favorite rare card to get from missions?
Rare card?
Rare card. Yeah.
Oh, God.
What makes you excited?
Well, it depends on the phase of the alpha. So early phase, Crescent Crux. By far. Right now, all you guys should be jumping in for joy when you get a Crescent Crux. But shortly after that, I would probably say maybe cargo expanders. Maybe they're useful. Ironically, I actually place more value on a common card than most rares, and that's going to be the runes that let you build ships at 15% faster. So, you know, I actually put more weight in that. Yeah.
Can I jump in a minute?
Yeah, sure.
You get lots of those. The ones that really turn me on are the requirements for a mission reduced.
Oh yeah, all is one. Here, let's go ahead and pull that up.
Not the station one, the fleet one.
Oh, Coxie Quack. That is another favorite. That's true. There are so many great cards. You know, we really got to tip our hats to the devs for creating such unique and valuable cards. Here, let's go ahead and take a look at what those are right now. Yeah, you can see I've started getting some epics. Yeah, cargo, all is one. That's another great one. Borts, that's another good one. For your Imperial players, you're going to want patrol ships. So you're going to want the binary helix. I've got 2 Natasha furs. Coxie Quack, that's the valuable
about her?
So I hated her at first. I hated the very idea of her. Now I actually hate her even more than I did before. Because resources are so hard to come by, but later on in the game you will be so glad you've got her. You know, it reduces the building time by 15%, although the cost does go up. Keep in mind though, if you like optimize all your station cards to reduce building time and then you apply accelerants, you're kind of getting a multiplied factor of benefits with those accelerants, you know what I mean? So that 5-minute accelerant's maybe closer to 7 or 8 minutes worth. That's the way I see it. So yeah, but you know, it's going to be really helpful for building stations up quickly, staying in the influence race, getting your station up quickly, especially when you're on the front lines. You need to build up that station quickly, and you need to get to that Navy base. Or get to that defensive, you know, fortress or something, missile battery.
You should perhaps explain though, Admiral, that if you use Natasha and you apply accelerants, you just crash the wall much earlier.
Yes. So if you're gonna use Natasha make sure you have a metric shit ton of resources, because the costs do add up quickly, as a lot of us have learned painfully at the beginning of this alpha. So yeah, here's my favorite card right now. Pretty much the entire alpha, this is probably going to be my favorite card. I use it religiously. Yeah, so, you know, as far as legendary characters, let's see, I don't have any. It's tough. You know, early alpha, I'd say Samuel Darby, because the extra resources and industrial speed, that's great for running solar flares. But later on, Mumi Nakamura, gotta love him, and Zeno. You know, there's high value for both of them. I do find that it depends on the station that you're trying to build, but they all have their value in one way or another. If you've got a station that's important but not within range of other stations, you might not use a Zeno, and you may not need the resources or the industrial speed. So, you know, your decision between these two, you know, that's your prerogative. I would probably say, you know, it depends. I don't want to be spied. If I don't want the enemy to see what I'm doing, that spy defense is going to be really important. Anyways, we should move on. We've got plenty of other questions here. Let's go with mining. Do mining outposts pull from all resources within its sphere of influence, even if they are not within a station's sphere of influence? Yes. So what they mean by that is, let's say we got a station. Let's see. Here we go. Let's look at this guy's station, right? Let's say he puts a mining facility right here. Okay. He's asking is, will this mining facility raid these two fields or just the one within claim radius here? At least if I understand his question correctly. The answer is yes, it will actually mine these fields. In fact, even if you apply a card, what card was that again? Mining robots, was it?
Mining robots does increase the radius.
Yeah, so if you apply a card that increases the radius, it'll even go 2 out or 3 out. However many radius you need to affect, claim does not affect the benefit of boosted or carded outposts at all. Recycling. How do I recycle an outpost? Do I receive any resources for this action? Well, unfortunately, I'm not willing to show you how to do it. But you do get cards. I wonder if there's a way to actually just get to that screen without doing it. Snoogums, do you know?
You'll always have to have an industrial selected and right clicking up.
I see. Okay, unfortunately I don't have any industrials available, so I can't show you, but you would what would you do? You would select the industrial, right? And then you would what, right click the outpost?
Right click the outpost.
Okay. And then you would what, click downgrade, and then there would be a window with a checkbox allowing you to completely recycle an outpost using a card, or what?
Yes, so when you right click an outpost with your industrial selected, an outpost that you own, and the station, the industrials are in the station that owns the outpost. Right click the outpost and you can select downgrade or recycle. If you select recycle, you remove the last level of the outpost. But downgrade just removes 1 level. However, there is a checkbox in the UI, and if you check it, you're going to use a special card called Salvage Team. When you use Salvage Team, you downgrade all the levels of the outpost in 1 run. Usually you have to go once for each level of the outpost. You get half of the resources for every level, or until the cargo capacity of the industrials is exceeded, and you get all the commodities you spent on the outposts. If you do not check that checkbox, you're only going to remove 1 level, get half the resources for that level, but no commodities.
It doesn't work on level 1 at the moment. If you recycle level 1, you don't get the commodities back, and you don't get a chance to use them.
Good to know. So, you know, in the end, you really don't want to downgrade your outposts. If you do, you know, to preserve your commodities, particularly if it's a tier 2 or 3, particularly tier 3 or tier 4 outposts, I should say. Like tier 4 outposts being like the Navy base, the habitation dome, or the mining colony. You're really going to want to use a salvage team. You don't want to lose those commodities. They're insanely rare and hard to come by. But if you do fail, you know, with a tier 1 outpost that requires only steel slabs, and you haven't used your diamond nanos, i.e. the first 3 levels of an outpost, you don't like where it is, you know, it probably won't hurt you too much to just downgrade it without using your salvage team. You know, salvage team is for the real mistakes where you've used maybe your diamond nanos and, more importantly, your titanium blocks. These are ironically more important than the legendaries in my opinion. So what's next? Let's see. Administrators, what do they do and how do I get more? So administrators, you get 6 administrators for every station level starting with tier 2. So as soon as you upgrade from your starting station to tier 2, you get 6 administrators. And as you can see, the little icon at the top left of each of the building, it requires an administrator. That means I can only choose 6 buildings to level up, 6 or less buildings from here to actually construct and upgrade. Okay? The basic productions do not require administrators. Once I hit station level 3, I get another 6. So I can choose to put a couple more in tier 1, or I can choose to put all 6 in the next level down from the tier 2 buildings, I should say. So the idea is, in order to build, for example, docking bay, you have to have spent an administrator to build the patrol station. They're linked that way, and so on and so forth. That's what you can see with all these lines. All right. If you so like right now, I couldn't build the Astro Farm. I'd have to spend an administrator. And once you hit station tier 4, you get an additional 5 administrators. So you'll have a total of 17 administrators. Okay, that'll give you There are essentially layout templates that you're going to want to go by. You can go. You're always going to want, pretty much always going to want 9 points in one of these 3 lines. You're going to want 5 points in another one of the other 2 lines from, aside from the one you selected. And those 5 points are going to be, let's say I went 9 points in industrial. Those 5 points are either going to be these 5 right here in order to get the communication array, or these 5 right here in order to get the civilian militia. That will help us unlock companies. These companies are essential for your alliance, and they also give really great bonuses once they hit level 10. So you're pretty much, you can do whatever you want, but if you want to play it right, you're going to have 9 and then 5 points, and then the remaining 3 points will go literally wherever you want. It's not important. You just choose the benefit that's most important to you. I'm totally going to recycle some of these buildings, so don't think you can attack me and know what my buildings are going to be. Anyways, coordination. Any tips on coordinating my playstyle and policies with my alliance? How do I become the most effective contributor to the cause? It depends on your policy. Each policy is going to want to really connect with some kind of veteran or players, or do some research, look at the policies, and choose a strategy that utilizes that policy to its best ability. Coordination, I would highly recommend Discord. Get your alliance on a Discord server and start talking and just share. I got to where I am today literally by just connecting with people and talking about Starborne day in and day out. We loved talking about it. We loved asking questions and coming up with ideas and things to test, theories to check out, and strategies to look at. So get on Discord. Communication is key in this game. With regards to policies, for imperialistic players, a strategy would be build a ton of defensive ships, build up a bunch of labor, build up a lot of resource generation, and help build your alliance station and Dyson sphere. It's going to require a lot of resources, and you'll be an effective contributor. Same thing with also imperial players can give ships once you own an alliance station. Same thing with Machiavellian players. Machiavellian players are going to be very valuable by having enhanced spy reports, participating in PvP offense and defense with their sabotage mechanic. Machiavellian players also have a great ability to build ships quickly as well, and they can also now donate them to the alliance. And so, that's kind of my perception on Macchi players. Very important players. And militaristic players, well, you smash your enemies. A good defense is a good offense sometimes. And if you see that there's that one airy guy or that one dull guy is kicking my ass on the influence rank, I'll wait for him to make a mistake, and I'll just smash his fleets, set him back. You need offensive players, otherwise you have no teeth, and your teeth are sometimes necessary, unless you're old and faded. Let's see. What else? How do I recall a fleet after I have deployed it? Let's see. When you go to the movements UI, and now you can see some of my ships. As soon as you send out a movement, you have 3 minutes to get to the screen and hit cancel movements. The sooner you hit cancel, the faster the ships return back. But if you cancel the movement at 2:58, it's going to take a while for those fleets to actually get back. Even though the movement is canceled, it won't take, you know, relatively long, maybe a couple minutes as opposed to, you know, a couple seconds is what I'm talking about. Are fleets limited to a single ship type? Yes. Is there a way to link multiple fleets to hotkeys or a group? No. Although that's a good idea. What you can do, however, is send multiple fleets together in doing a mission, or in doing a raid, or in doing almost anything. There are certain things that you can't do when sending multiple fleets, but you know, that I'll leave you to figure that out. I don't think you can send anything but scouts on probe missions, right?
They're the only one that contribute to it, at least.
Yeah. Well, no, I could have sworn I actually got like a red tag saying you couldn't do it. I don't know about solar flares, if you can send anything but a indie fleet for solar
You
flares.
definitely can't send anything else but recons and scouts on scouting missions. You get a warning saying this is not a scout.
Yeah. All right, labor. When should I start worrying about labor multipliers from excess operating fleets? Pretty much right away, guys. Since this entire alpha began, I've been focusing so much on my labor. I didn't start with hardly any labor, and I'm still negative. Now, I have ways to get around that, as you saw with the slider, but almost all my basic labor at my first station is level 10, which means I have to decide, is that going to be my capital or not? I have not yet made that decision. But really, if you're playing the game right, and you're keeping your ship queues full, you're going to build a lot of ships, and you're going to need to fleet those ships. Otherwise, they're pretty much useless, and they make, you know, it sucks to lose them. I look at ships as ways to generate resources in the early game. That's why you saw, you know, I'd say about this past week, I was in the bottom 10, and here I am. I'm about to take number 1. And so the reason for that is because I played with the mind of generating resources. What can I do to generate resources? Well, you build a ship once, there's a one-time cost. And yeah, you got to fleet it with labor. But that one ship will constantly, as active as you can keep it, generate resources for you. In going to further detail, it costs 100 resources, right, to build one ship. Cargo space is 10. You can actually have this carted up to, depending on what you do, 39 cargo space. So if you use this fleet 3 times and it fully raids something, you know, 3 times, it's paid for itself. And every usage after that is profit. You know, you could break even on your investment on this ship the same day you built that ship, essentially. You can't say that with regards to anything else in this game. I'm fairly certain of that. Anyways.
Can I jump in quickly?
Go for it.
It's for this reason that I believe that the habitation dome is a viable alternative to the mining colony as your first tier 4 outpost, just as a side. Here you go, Admiral. Back to you.
Yeah, and you know, it's a good thought. I honestly don't know. I do know that
I love the idea.
Yeah, I do too. I really want to test it out. I think there's a lot of merit to it, especially since we now see that the people, like this guy, potentially, this isn't his starting location, but if this was his starting location, this would be an amazing starting location for him, because you start with so much labor. And I started with no labor in my starting location, or at least I think virtually no labor. And that sucks for me, because that means I got to convert all 3 of my resources into labor, which costs me essentially all my my resource production for half as much labor, or a third as much labor as this guy would probably get if he started with labor. So yeah, I actually envy the guys who started with a lot of labor. You know, you may see that your resources per hour is lower, but if you use that labor for ships, you are making way more in resources. And I mean that. So yeah, Yeah, I think if you're brave or you're not willing, if you're willing to take the risk, try your first station building a habitation dome and make sure that habitation dome is within range of your next, let's say, 3 or 4 stations. And let me know how that works out for you. I'd be really curious.
Question on the spacing. What would you recommend as the spacing between your stations? Is there a limit too close, a limit too far? There's a lot of people who have asked that quite a few times the last couple.
Too close? What, stations between each other?
Yeah, like what would be the recommended distance between a station to your next?
You know what? If you look at my last live stream, it's also in the playlist on YouTube for Starborne, for my playlist. I actually go into a lot of detail about station planning and outpost layout. I would highly recommend anyone who's got that question to check out that video. There's actually 2 videos on that now.
Can I come in on that?
Yeah.
Because there's all sorts of ideas what's right and wrong. I'm actually using a system now where I can have 3 planets all farming 3 stations or 4 stations all farming the same 2 planets. I.e., there is no space between the stations.
Right. It's really a personal preference. There's a little bit of finesse to it, a little bit of just understanding how the game and the outposts work. Before you decide on your second station, make sure you understand what cards can affect the station's harvesting radius. Make sure you can understand what cards affect each outpost's radius. And make sure to create a future plan that can accommodate other stations beyond just your next station. And again, my last live stream goes into very helpful detail on that. All right, let's move on to the next one because we still have quite a lot of questions here. So with regards to labor, basically you're going to want to start building it right away. Whenever you have the spare resources, you can't go wrong with building additional labor. Organization. Is it possible to change fleet names after creating them? No, I don't believe it is, which is very unfortunate. However, you can, if you haven't applied cards to that fleet, then at no cost you can always just create a new, well, I should say if it's a brand new fleet, then chances are that fleet is the starting level, level 1, and whether you have cards or not, it may cost you prestige to remove those cards. But you can always just create a new fleet and then name that one and move your ships. But if you've applied cards to that fleet and that fleet has done a bunch of missions and gained some levels, you may not want to just move those ships into a new fleet just for the name. So it's up to you though. Let's see.
To
go ahead.
Point out, this used to be a feature in Starborne. You could rename your fleets, and it's going to be reintroduced. You will get to rename your fleets later.
Cool. So, everyone name your fleets after me. Let's see if we can crash the server. Admiral attacks Admiral. Let's see. Shipyard. Does the rush production option work when building ships? No. Although that would be a great way to use accelerants, I could see how that would be abused. So no. Station. What is the Visitors tab for? So the Visitors tab is when other allies send their ships, deploy their ships to your station to help you defend. You're going to be able to see them in the Visitors tab, and then you can even select and return them back to the owner. So keep in mind though that your visiting fleets do take up operating fleet slots. So make sure that you manage that well. Let's see if you're getting affected by not having enough fleet slots, you might return a few visitors. And also, the people who are deploying their fleets, they can actually get them back by like double clicking on the station. They see their fleets and they can right click and return it back to their home station, or the station it came from anyways. How do I unlock or change station tactics? Well, can't really, I'll just go ahead and show you that. You click on the tactics button, you select your tactic, and you say yes, and it takes 8 hours to retrain. I do believe right now that some people have been saying this is bugged, and in which case it'll be fixed shortly. And then, yeah, just read the achievements for tactics and before deciding which tactic you want to use. If I am attacked, do the ships in my hangar count towards defense? Well, it depends on your policies. Certain policies allow you to protect some of your ships, or I should say certain ships to not take part in defense. But for the most part, yes. You will lose your ships in hangars. There is a building that actually allows you to hide your ships. It's called the military hangars. Lets you hide 1,000 units per of each ship per level. So that's pretty cool. However, there are also other policies that can bypass this statistic and destroy those ships anyways, specifically for the militaristic players. Now, if they are in your hangar, they are essentially worthless and they are cannon fodder. Basically, your ships are going to just get murdered at a huge cost to you and at virtually no cost to your enemy. So you really don't want to leave ships in your hangar and undefended. It's okay to have ships in your hangar, but make sure you've got a defense force to defend them. And even then, you may still take some significant losses. Is it possible to destroy a station you built, like recycle it? Well, what you can do is downgrade. Let's go ahead and select the building. You can recycle each building of your entire station all the way to the point where you have maybe 1 building level. If I don't even know if you can have 0 building levels. But let's say you have 1 building level, then you can have an ally or somebody send in a gunship to destroy the station. There is a waiting period to get your influence points back so that you can build your new station. I believe it's 24 hours, and that resets if another station gets destroyed. Let's see. If 2 mining facilities share a common ice field, will both harvest resources out of it? Yes. Essentially, outposts are agnostic, and stations and outposts are agnostic to each other. You can have 6 stations and 6 outposts, all affecting the same resource field, depending on the field. Mining facilities only harvest fields. Stations can harvest both fields and planets and moons. Mining colonies can only do planets. However, there are ways to harvest mining fields with those mining colonies. And missile batteries, I believe, can only do fields as well with the correct
There's a quite simple way to remember what you can harvest. There are only 2 things that you cannot harvest. That is a hex claimed by another player not in your alliance, or a hex contested by another player not in your alliance. Everything else you will mine just fine. Unless
you're a Machiavellian player, in which case you can harvest from contested hexes. But yeah, good point. Let's see. This is one I actually wrote in because I know a lot of people are probably feeling this pain. I'm starving for resources. What am I doing wrong? How can I fix my situation? You're going to want to build up your industrial fleets. You're going to want to build up your corvettes. You're also going to want to have at least a moderate set of fleets for running missions, and the scouts in order to find them. Your industrial fleets, honestly, I think you get a lot of bang for your buck. Card up an industrial fleet, an epic card for cargo and a legendary card for cargo will take you a long way. And then go for maybe legendary plunder if you can afford the prestige. Build up enough ships and continue to build industrials until you max out that industrial fleet. You do get industrials for upgrading mining facilities, commerce hubs, and mining colonies. So you might want to consider those rewards before you decide how many industrials you're going to build. If you only ever plan on having 1 fleet maxed out, then make sure you account for those achievement rewards. So yeah, but otherwise keep building those industrials and start hitting solar flares. Look for them around you. They spawn randomly on suns. If you do need some scan strength, at least 1 point to see a solar flare, so drop a probe on it and you'll be good to go for at least the duration of that probe. That's one way. Raiding for resources. we actually just ended a very hotly debated topic about this. But in order to get resources, you can build, particularly if you're a militaristic player, build a bunch of corvettes and start raiding the other people's level 1 NPCs, raid your own. Work on that plunder stat. That plunder stat is important because it allows you to raid resources that are hidden from you and any other player. Let me paint you actually a story. I found earlier today some guy wiped out all the patrol ships, but then I saw, I think through Discord, that he was not a militaristic player. And on a hunch, I figured he probably didn't card for plunder. Well, this was a level 2 NPC, so they didn't get anything. They just lost a bunch of ships. And they killed all the enemy NPC ships. So I came in with my max plunder, my legendary plunder card, and my policies spec'd for plunder, and my strike command up to 10, so I have 100% plunder efficiency. I came in with enough cargo on my scouts, and I got 20,000 resources. 20,000 resources. And then I sent it back again and got another 20. So, yeah, I mean, that's a lot of resources. But in order to get to those kinds of resources, you need to keep your ship queues full. They are very important. And then you need to be able to fleet those ships by building labor. All right, so that's how you get resources. You, as over time, you'll find ways. Build up your mining facilities, upgrade them. I would do that before anything else. Get your first mining facility to level 5, and that will give you a mining cabal and a diamond nanorod. Apply that mining cabal. Lets you build a second. Well, you already can build a second, but it lets you build a third mining facility. And then, if you do choose to make the station your capital, you can then build a fourth mining facility. Mining facilities have great ROI. It's a great way to get passive resources, and they pay for themselves rather quickly. Same thing with mining colonies. They're very expensive though, so make sure you save up enough resources to upgrade them. Considering the fact of that you're going to want to run solar flares and raid a lot, one of your most important outposts to build will be the Stargate. So try to build it, try to upgrade it. Let's see here. What's next? Oh, keep in mind, every time you hit level 5 for each outpost, as long as it's your first time with that outpost, you do get 1 diamond nanorod back. So that's, you know, pretty efficient if you ask me. Let's see. Anyone have any questions out there?
I have directed people to at you in general if they have questions for.
Great. Okay. Let's move on.
I also have a question, Admiral.
Sure.
Seeing that we're about to enter the phase of the game where people will start to come out of the initial protection period.
Yeah.
What's a good way, if you don't have tons of fleet yet, protect yourself against attacks?
You're going to want to build fortresses and missile batteries. Missile batteries, they start with only a 1 hex radius, so keep that in mind. However, there are cards that increase the radius of those if you want to place the outpost farther away from your station. If you have multiple stations, you're going to want to try to make sure, be efficient, try to make sure your outposts are positioned, that your stations are positioned so that you can share outposts between 2 stations. For example, if I've got 2 stations right next to each other, this is a great example. Let's say these are both a player station, right? I know this is the NPC, but let's say it's a player station. This guy could put in a missile battery right here and right here from 1 station using the gyro card, and then card his station for extended radius and affect both stations by both missile batteries. So there are several outposts in this game that actually give the benefit to whatever station of theirs is within range. So that's kind of the benefit of increasing the radius of your outposts. So that's missile batteries. That suppresses the ships. It basically takes the ships out of the ships, a certain amount of ships' firepower based on their hit points, out of the game, making them less deadly. But if you have no ships whatsoever, then your best bet is to get some fortresses. Fortresses are the tier 3 military line outposts, and they actually do damage in a 2-hex radius. They actually do a significant amount of damage, especially early game. However, towards the end of the game, this damage will be largely ignored. You know, there are going to be fleets that can easily absorb the damage these fortresses can do. Keep in mind, though, you can have more than one fortress affect a station as long as it's within the radius of the fortress. And there are cards that can increase the radius of that fortress. So that's really all you can do. Another thing you can do is ask an ally for help. If you know for a fact you've got attacks coming your way, have some allies send some ships, deploy them over to your visitors section, to your station, and they will partake in defense in that combat. Alright. Did I answer that well enough for you guys?
Great, thank you.
Cool. Alright. What outpost should I level up first? I went over that. Mining facilities all the way, guys. And then after that, I would probably go with Stargate. And after that, let's see, maybe the mining colony? Or Commerce Hub. Commerce Hub, and then mining colony. Let's see, what should I use prestige on? How do I get more? This is a loaded question. Guys, I can't tell you what to use prestige on because it really, I mean, so many cards in this game are so important. What I would recommend is develop a strategy for yourself. Start with the legendaries, select the permanent cards. I will rarely ever spend prestige on a rune or a character card because you can get those from missions. But look at the permanent cards, try to formulate a strategy. Some of my personal favorites, and by no means the best, are the filtration installation, cargo trailer, let's go with Apex mining laser. I mean graphene armor for us offensive and I mean for all players, graphene armor is going to be really important. You know, high command is good, even the hospital. I mean, go through every legendary, read it, figure it out. You know, pyro processing is another good one. For your let's just kind of take a step back. For your industrial fleets, you're going to want a cargo trailer, or if you're a newbie and you want to be, you know, safe and conservative with your prestige, you can get the epic version. You can actually just type cargo, and you can see the cargo space. So you're gonna want to, when you spend your prestige, you're really gonna want to either craft an epic or a legendary most of the time. There are times where a common or rare is important, but you know, that's really up for you to decide. Me personally, I like to craft epics if I know I'm going to need a lot of them, or if I know I'm not going to need it too severely, and legendaries if I know it's going to be very important for my build. But for the sake of my industrial fleet, I did go with a legendary cargo cargo card and a epic cargo card for my second slot. For my hull slot, I did go with the legendary version of the plasma cargo, and now I'm doing, with a maxed out industrial fleet, I'm doing 35,000 resource solar flare hulls, and I'm not even an imperialistic player, so to give you an idea there. So yeah, but just read through every card. You're really gonna just want to read through it all and make a decision. If you looked early in the stream, you actually got a free glimpse at every single card on all my stations. So go back, take a look, and make an educated decision based on your own plan. How do you get more prestige? Commerce hubs is the favored way. The way it works is commerce hubs have start with a radius of 1. You can card it for a radius of 2, and for every mining field within its radius, you get 0.2 prestige per hour per outpost level. So just, oh my god, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So within a 2 radius of here, I count, is that 8? Yeah, 6, 7, 8. I count 8 mining fields within a 2 radius of this spot. So that's amazing. That means 1.6 prestige per hour per outpost level. I would definitely build a commerce hub in a spot like this and card for increased range, you get, I mean, essentially, give or take depending on the situation, but essentially expect your commerce hub to pay for itself, especially if you go with the legendary version. Commerce hub. If you go with the legendary version, it'll pay for itself in about a week or so. Typically, after the first 2 months, there may not be enough time for a legendary commerce hub to pay for itself compared to the value of an epic. So after month 2, you may consider getting the entertainment complex over the stock exchange. You'll just have to run that math for yourself. Operating fleets versus supplied by fleets. This is one I just wanted you guys to know about, so I added it in. When you're looking at all your cards and all your buildings, it's very important you understand these two very specific mechanics. Operating from versus supplied by. So, fleets raiding from this station, that's essentially operating from this station, gain benefits. Supplied by, doesn't matter where your fleets are, so long as the labor is supplied by this station. Okay, those are two very distinct things. So let's see if I can. Okay, well, let's just look at this one. All fleets operating from a station, including visiting fleets, cost 10% more labor. Oh, that's the penalty. Station's fleet operating limit increases by 10. So at that station, the operating limit is, that's a pretty piss poor example actually, if you ask me. Let's look at this one. Ships operating from this station. So it doesn't matter which station is supplying the labor. Okay, I could have 40 or let's say 20 stations, so more realistically 15 stations supplying labor to all my fleets, and if I have all my fleets in one station and I have this card on that one station, all my fleets gain benefit from this card because it's operating from. Now there are some buildings that and cards that affect supplied by. Let's see if we can find one here. Samuel Darby. Industrials supplied by this station gain 1 speed. So it doesn't matter where my industrials are, as long as they're supplied, the labor is supplied by the station that has this card, they'll get that bonus. So when you're looking at all these cards and all these buildings, really understand that difference because it makes a huge difference. Alright. How to rename station and fleets. Well, you can't rename fleets. You can name them when you create them. To rename a station, you just click on the name here and you can just type something new in. Okay. Let's see. Anyone have any questions so far?
I got one.
Sure.
Why do the outpost in industrial and domain cost differently from the maximum resource?
You know what? That's actually going to change with the next patch, from what I'm hearing. Yeah, so,
okay.
Look at that, upgraded warehouse level 10.
So they just forgot to change it or something?
No, they didn't forget. They knew about the bug. It's just lower on the priority list. So yeah, expect that outposts of domain will cost more in gas. Expect that outposts in industrial will cost more in crystal. Personally, I actually liked that they required a different resource, because it actually helped me to balance out my resources more. Now it actually becomes very difficult. If I'm building up a bunch of industrial buildings and then I need to build mining facilities, well, I'm going to have more gas than I'm going to have crystal. That's not going to be the case anymore, so building outposts will actually be slightly harder. Just because they use essentially the same resources which you may be focusing on building. Let's see here. How to level up stations. To level up stations, you just need to build buildings, guys. Each building gives you, as you can see at the very bottom of that tooltip, actually second to last, influence generation. You continue to build up buildings and your influence goes up. Once you hit the threshold, you are allowed to upgrade your station. Once you upgrade your station, well, there are certain benefits and there are certain losses, such as you can no longer use cards like Willy Gamish. Here, let's go ahead and pull him up here. And this is honestly another one of my favorite cards. I would make him a rare at the very least. But you can't you know, level of station cannot exceed 2. So once you upgraded 3, you can't use them. Pro tip, that's why I haven't upgraded my stations past level 2. So let's go on to the next question. How do I get infrastructure points? Well, as you build up buildings, you get influence. That influence is also experience. If you move mouse over here, you can see the time to your next level. You also get experience by in the early game by accomplishing tasks and achievements. So make sure you do a lot of that. And yeah, just get that experience. You also get experience through accomplishing dailies. Oh my god, look at that. 4 level 3s. Did I re-roll? I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, as you complete these and you claim them, you do gain experience. Now, another pro tip, try to claim these right before the daily resets, or at the very least, right before, after you level. So, because the experience you get from accepting those daily achievements is based on your current level. So if you gain a level and then accept those achievements, you actually get more experience. And that is how our favorite player, what's his name? Omni, is it? He is, as far as I know, the only person in the entire alpha who managed to get titanium in week 1, right before the reset, the weekly reset. Shout out to you there, man.
Thanks.
So, how to build and upgrade outposts? Well, you gotta have an industrial fleet. You gotta have enough of those ships. You gotta have enough resources, and you gotta have the commodities. Commodities you can find right here, and you can actually further filter down here. And then you select the fleet. You right-click, and then you'll see a window that allows you to select which outpost you want to build. Now, you can only build the outpost if you've unlocked the prerequisites, which in this case is typically 1 building in the tier 1, or let's see, this one requires a specific card to be applied to build the second missile battery. In this case, you need a total of 5 military buildings to build a fortress outpost, and I would need 5 domain buildings to build a Stargate, and so on and so forth. So keep in mind those building requirements, and it doesn't matter which buildings you build to get to this outpost, so long as you build it. So like, you don't need to build Data Bureau to get Stargate. You could go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and still get this Stargate. These outposts are not linked to any specific building. You just need to have enough in that line to be able to build it. Let's see, and that's the same. Essentially, the same thing goes for upgrading outposts. They cost more resources and more commodities. Anything after level 3 outpost also requires a diamond nanorod, and CSA and HSA assemblies require a diamond nanorod per level. So save up your DNs, guys. How to scan and why? I've already posted a tutorial video on that, so go check that out. Same thing with scan strength and radius. Gotta watch those tutorials, guys. Why do spiles fail with 31 scan strength? I don't know. I haven't looked into that one, so I don't have an answer for you.
So there used to be a rounding error in the scans, like for the scanning missions. I presume the question is. I thought that was taken care of. If somebody has a screenshot of that not being the case, I would love it in the Bugs channel. Thank you.
Okay. What are escorts? Escorts, when you run a mission, some higher level missions require escorts, which means you need to just send an additional fleet, or there are some cards. There are some cards that give you a free escort if you apply it to the fleet. So these are very popular cards for that reason. This is also my favorite card because you don't apply it to a fleet, you apply it to the station, and it applies to every fleet running from that station. It makes it easier to run the mission, and it reduces the number of escorts for running that mission. This is very popular, very important. In fact, I do run it right now. Let's see, how to respec policies. I'm not going to show you my policies, so go fly a kite. But if you want to respect them, you're going to need some commander overhaul cards. There's a button at the bottom of your policy screen that lets you, once you click that button, you can then select the policies that you no longer want to have. It's going to cost you cards, you're going to confirm it, and then you'll be able to spend those points elsewhere. What can I do with industrial fleets? The same things you can do with an industrial, let's see here, with the Drunken Sailor, that's right. With industrial fleets, I'm machine gunning here, guys, because I got a lot of questions. With industrial fleets, you can do solar flares, you can raid. Industrial fleets have a ton of cargo space, so you can raid. They won't be as effective because they won't have as much plunder viability as other fleets. There are cards that can give them some plunder, though. Industrials can build stations. They can also build outposts and upgrade outposts. I wouldn't really recommend them for much else. I don't think there's much else they can do, except maybe get destroyed. Oh, one more thing. They can repair outposts. If your outpost is sabotaged by an enemy player, you can use your industrials to repair them, and that's going to be very important. And you only need one industrial to repair an outpost, so keep that in mind. What is ESA? It stands for European Space Agency. It is the entity that protects you from being attacked for the first week, and after the first week, that is gone forever. Well, at least so for the alpha.
I might just add a little story here. We've been talking in the office if we're actually allowed to use ESA. And it turns out it's quite a copyrighted thing.
No way.
So the actual welcome message for this alpha contained the name European Space Agency for a while until we like, hang on a moment.
Wow.
So although we're not getting rid of the acronym ESA,
oh bummer,
we do have to find it another name. So, interjection out.
Let's see here. Something singularity something protected. That works. Singularity will protect you for the first week. How about that? Let's see. How to change my avatar. You're going to click on your portrait. Oh, sorry, not left click. Right click your portrait. And bam. I still love this one so much. But I'm sticking with my winning. And yeah, you can scroll down and select different colors and whatnot. Where can I see the cooldown of my spies? That's a good one. So every time you use a spy, it takes, what, an hour to respawn it? Which reminds me, Snookums, remind me to tell you about a bug I found with regards to this.
Okay, Admiral?
Yeah. What's that?
Oh, you asked me to remind you about a bug you were supposed to tell me about?
Yeah, later. Jeez. Smart ass. What's the difference?
Fulfilled my part of the bargain.
What's the difference between assault and raid? So that's a very good question. Assaults gain the benefit of tactical firepower, and tactical firepower is rock paper scissors. Assaults are they use the tactical firepower, however they do not loot anything. Raids always lose to the defending player, no matter what. So if the defending player has no ships, you may raid no matter what because you're not going to lose much. But if the defending player has a bunch of ships, it's a big slugfest, you may not want to raid because you'll always lose against a defending player. So you would want to use assaults. Well, let's see. Raid allows you to loot resources. Assaults allows you to use gunships to destroy buildings in a station. And assaults also gain the benefit of tactical firepower. For more information, check out your tasks and achievements. There's some great descriptions there. Look at, you're going to try using a raid and try assaulting your NPC to see kind of what their combat reports will look like. Like you can see my messages, but you can see different kinds of benefits when raiding versus assaulting. I mean, that's kind of it for the most part. How to get the unlock for higher tier ships. So for the heavy ships and capital ships, you get those at certain level increments. Check out Discord and look at the Starborne Discord. There's an announcement that actually tells you what levels you need to be to get the cards. Once you get those cards, you're going to go to apply it to a building. You're going to apply it here or here. Then you're going to build the building, which is going to cost a metric crap ton of resources. And then that will unlock your ability to build an outpost. Once you build that outpost, you can see, look, how much it costs in commodities. Make sure you save up your commodities to try to get this outpost up as quickly as possible, because building these ships are key to winning the game. Not essential, but key. Particularly the card that the Warhead Specialist card that lets you to build gunships. Those gunships, man, those are your teeth. You don't want to lose your gunships. And I think that is all of my frequently asked questions. Does anyone else have any other questions? Well, I guess not.
Thanks, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was good talking to everyone. I hope everyone learned at least a little something from this. And if you like these videos, share it. And, you know, like all the other podcasters, click like and subscribe. All right, take it easy, guys.